regarding particular individuals such as students or district employees privately to the superintendent or other appropriate administrators or board members, or to communicate with the board and superintendent privately by sending an email to psdschoolboard@pennridge.org. Questions raised and not addressed may be followed up at a later time. Are there any public comments?
Just finance?
Yes.
Yeah, I have one. Sue Furlong, West Rachael Township. I think this is finance. The suburban water technology, was that sent out for bids?
If you want to list all of your questions and comments, and then we'll try to address them.
Okay, well, that was it.
That's it? Okay. Perfect.
It's $800, and then $825, so it's like $2,400 a month. And I'm just curious if, if we've asked other companies to bid on that service, because that, it gets to be a large amount when you take it out over the year. And so I'm just curious if we have any other bids on that.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Delbert will touch on that.
Okay.
When we get to that. Any other public comments? Okay. All right. Review contracts for approval. Mr. Delbert.
Okay, first contract, actually the first two contracts are Kids Piece for tutorial services. You see these contracts on a monthly basis. These are both for the educational services children are in the medical facility. So $40 per hour for the services provided for the kids, and then the services will continue as long as the kids are in need of the medical. C is the Great American Opportunity Program. This is the annual contract for all three middle schools. This contract is for 1920 school year. This is the magazine drive fundraiser. This program is currently underway at all three middle schools. And we did reach out to the three buildings to find out from them makes about $10,000 on it. North is the last 2 years have been 11.9 and 12.3, and then South the last 3 years 9,500, 14.6, and 13.5. So they make pretty decent money on this. So that's that. D is the Bucks County Intermediate Unit. This is for the IDEA Section 619 Early Intervention Contract. So what this is federal dollars which flow through the IU to the school district to be used for students with disabilities. And this particular Section 619 is only to be used for the district can only use this money for kindergarten students that are 5 years old. And this allocation is $5,544. And the other section of IDA is for the school-aged children, and those dollars can be used through grades 1 through 12, and we do use those dollars. And the other one is a much larger amount. This is a small amount because just is for kids that are 5 years old and in kindergarten. So that's what that contract is for, and that's an annual contract. You see that each year. Nothing has changed in that other than the amount of money, which is based on the form driven out. E, F, and G are three contracts, independent contracts for suburban water. These contracts are for the testing of the water at these three buildings because these three buildings are on wells. Water has always been the vendor that has done the testing. This was not bid. This is a professional service. It's not required to be bid, and each contract stands on its own, and each contract is less than $10,000. So it is a professional service testing of the water.
Is there, would there be a benefit to reaching out to some other companies that offer that service just to compare and see where we're falling with this company?
Is there any other,
I don't believe there's a lot of companies that do this compliance testing, but I could certainly do that just to ease the conscience of, is this a good price or not? I can tell you, I use the same vendor at Quakertown successfully. They do a good job. They're fairly local. They're Montgomery County, but they're just across the line. And they do a good job, I think, is why we've used them for this long. But we could, if that's the board's direction, I can certainly look at different prices to make sure we're good. Okay.
This is separate from the other testing we talked about before, right? The pipes.
Yes.
It's completely separate.
Yep, we're going to talk about that facility. And this settlement agreement was presented to the board by Dr. Oyerka and Dr. Bolton under, as a legal item in executive sessions. I understand that you've had all the information on that settlement agreement, and Dr. Oyerka sent it back out and asked if there was any questions. So I don't really have anything to talk about with the settlement agreements. It's a special ed issue unless you have questions after this meeting. Please make sure that they get back, and we'll get them to Dr. Lerner or Dr. Bolton so that you have all your questions answered. Delta T Group, which is the next one, this is for substitute nursing services. You remember last year we started with, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 different companies to try to get enough substitutes for the nurses. And this is just a renewal of one of those contracts to continue to have resources available to us when we need substitute nurses, especially when we have kids that are going out on trips and we need to send a nurse along because we haven't met with a fragile child. We need to be able to pull from these services, these providers, so that we're not taking our nurses out of the building and leaving the buildings unattended while, and not covering the building while we're covering a field trip. We need these services to be able to cover these different things. Again, it's just a renewal of the current year contract, and as far as I know, it's been working well. Sherry's happy with it, or she wouldn't have brought it back for, a new loss.
Question with that, Sean. Is there a price increase, or have they held the prices the same?
Same rates as last year.
Same rate, okay. Thank you.
Same rates as last year. The next one is the Lehigh University contract for the graduation date June 13th, 2019. Estimated cost $10,604.76. And there is an alternate date in here in case we have too many snow days this year, which is June 18th. And last year our final cost was actually about $1,000 more than this year's estimate. So, so if there's any, when you look at that, if there's any questions you have, let us know and I'll get them answered.
Basically the same level of services this year? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So wait, why is it cheaper then? Oh, it's more. Okay, you said
No,
it's
it's
Well, the
$1,000
estimate's about $1,000 less, so, but they give it to us as an estimate, depending on how many hours.
So this year's estimate is lower than last year's estimate?
Actual.
Or
Than
last year's
last year's.
actual.
Actual cost?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it.
Estimates are the same.
So it depends on once we get there, how many hours we have, and
All right, now I understand,
Yeah.
sorry.
so. And again, they clearly state in there, this is that it, so the estimate based on the hours that they think we'll need, and
Oh,
and then
okay.
they do a final bill at the end after they've, we've actually got our after the program's over, so.
Okay.
Okay? And the last contract is Rachel's Challenge. presentation for students, staff, and community on March 12th and 13th of 2019. The cost is $14,300.
Okay. And this is a presentation, the presentation was given at the PSBA conference, and, Mrs. Cullen and I were able to view that presentation there, and we were really impressed with it. And actually, I had reached out to Dr. Hoffman, the executive director of the Bucks County Intermediate Unit, afterwards, and told him how great this was and that we should look into this in the county. And he said, I've already been contacted by numerous other board members over there today who are saying the same thing. So we're definitely, going to look at this. And it was something that was discussed at the superintendent's meeting at the IU. And there was a lot of excitement, and some of the superintendents who were not able to make it to PSBA and some other board members are excited that we're looking to bring it here, so that for those of them who were not able to make it to PSBA, they would have the opportunity to come and hopefully be able to view it here, so they can see if they can bring it their way. But it's a great program, and I'm going to let Mrs. Cullen share more about it. She's been doing a lot of work on this and was able to get us a discount and a better deal on this. So I'll turn it over to Mrs. Cullen.
So yeah, I think this kind of straddles two things, maybe like curriculum and, I guess it's a shame that it's being introduced at the finance meeting, although I understand why, because it is a contract. But as Megan said, we went to the presentation. Daryl Scott was one of the keynote speakers at the school board conference that you guys all sent us to in October. And for as long as I've been on the board, we've been working on the social and emotional learning, and I've always felt like there was an element that was missing, and that would be the intrinsic, we focus on a lot of things like other people's behavior and how you address other people's behavior, but I felt like there wasn't really anything that addresses the individual's behavior and responsibility and what an individual can do to make their own world and existence better for themselves. And when I watched Daryl Scott speak, I'm trying not to get choked up, but I ran right back to the back of the room when it was over, and I had to get the information for it, and I knew that it was something that had to come to Pennridge. So I'm really grateful that you guys sent us to the conference, because I think this is what we've been missing. I think this is something that will, again, it will complement the social and emotional learning that we already have. It will complement what we've done over the last couple of years. We have increased our guidance department staff. We have taken on psychologists, because as we all know, mental health and mental well-being is a real crisis. And I think we've done everything on that end that you can possibly do, as far as having outside forces that are working, not imposing, but, bringing something to someone. Now this will address the student from the inside and have him or her work from the inside out, and actually adults as well. And so I know there's concern about the cost. It is $14,300, but it's not just any other assembly. This assembly is going to reach over 4,000 of our 7,300 students, first of all. So this isn't just an assembly that's going to be done at the high school and goodbye. We're going to have our middle school students come. We are looking at bringing even the 5th graders to come into the high school and to have the presentation here. So this will take place over 2 days. You're going to have the younger ones the first day and the older ones the day after, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. But with the high school, now the younger ones will see the presentation, and then they will go back to school. But for the high school students, it's called the immersion package, and they give the students the presentation broken into two groups, 9th and 10th grade and 11th and 12th grade. They see the presentation in the morning. They see an identical presentation. And then in the afternoon, you have Rachael's Challenge people and adults from our faculty, staff. I've volunteered to come in to be one of the adult facilitators, but they work with the kids to tell them how to put this all into action. There's Rachael's Challenge clubs throughout the country, and they do anything they feel moved to do to make, again, their world a better place. And it's all about, to me, it's about empowering yourself and saying to yourself Instead of focusing on a problem, which is what we always do, we always focus on a problem, and we all have problems, but when you focus on that too much, then you're letting yourself be consumed by the problem. This tells the person how every day when I wake up, what can I do, something simple to make my world a better place, and it gets rid of that noise. You have stuff to do. You can't focus on problems because you have things that you're doing that are having a positive impact. And it's not simply just being kind to people. That's manners, in my opinion. That's just teaching someone manners. This goes a lot deeper than that. It teaches them, again, how to put it in their own hands and to control it their own way. And in addition to the school presentation, which includes, you've got your presentation, the program materials, the on-demand professional development, which I think is important, so our teachers will have access to all of this and be able to use it. They have a training for the Friends of Rachael Club, teacher's kit, then there's some more on-demand professional development and training and an assessment. And very importantly, on the second day, after the students have seen the presentation, all of our students will have seen it, most of them I should say, then we're going to have a presentation for the community, for the parents, for anybody who lives in Pennridge who wants to come see this. And I told someone earlier I would go door to door and knock on people's doors and drag them here to the high school. I think it's that important. And I would encourage every single one of you, March 13th, to make sure you mark it on your calendar. This is not something to be missed. You will not be disappointed. And I know that you'll feel that it is as powerful as we thought it was when we saw it. He has a Daryl Scott, the #1 guy, because that was something that was important to us too. We said, no, we want to make sure it's him that comes and gives our talk, and they're like, okay, well, I guess you can ask, and we did, and we got it. So he's coming, and he's going to be the one to give the talk, and he just has such a unique way of delivering his message. It's very impactful, but I think it's so important for all of the adults in our community to see it, because we as adults have to buy into this idea too. I think it's long past time that we start looking at things from a different perspective of not focusing on a problem, but focusing on just making ourselves better every day as we go along. So I hope you'll support it. If you won't, I mean, I'm not techie, but I can look into how to set up a GoFundMe account to do it. Like, I am that convinced that this is something that Pennridge needs to do. And again, that $14,000 price tag for that, you are getting this program in front of the more than half of our students, all of our teachers, our faculty, staff, parents, community members. It's open to everyone, and it will be well worth it. So that's my pitch.
And just to kind of touch on that too, the presentation that we had, there was not a dry eye in the entire room. Everyone, because it was that powerful of a presentation. And for the people who may think that may have their doubts, I encourage you to come and see it for yourself. It is the presentations. It's going to be, I think 5 presentations that they're doing over a 2-day period. So that's 5 different presentations. That's professional development. It's training, and it gets carried through. And there's different districts that have done this, that have the kids are empowered to come up with their own things going forward. It's not like it's it's the kids taking that initiative. And I can give you a couple of examples. There was one school district that we were hearing, that was sharing that their students decided to create a Rachel's closet. And they have a huge closet where they said it's like going into it's like you're going shopping, because it's a huge room and everybody donates to it. And then if there's anyone in the schools that, has any kind of a need, or they see, the same kid, a kid is wearing the same outfit, this so many days in a row, or that someone could need something, they bring them into Rachel's closet. And this is something that was created by the students. So, that was something that I thought was neat. Another thing, they were talking about, in one of the school districts, the kids were the ones who got their parents out. They thought that the presentation was so powerful that they wanted their parents to come to that presentation. So they were the ones who encouraged their parents to come because they wanted them to see it. And they said that it was a packed house and it was a snowstorm. It was snowing, and so they were like, oh, this is great, we're not going to have a very good turnout, but because it was so important to the kids for their parents to come, it was packed. And they were surprised by how much the kids were able to get their parents to come out to this presentation, because the kids thought it was that important.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but so if you want to go to the rachelschallenge.org website, and over on the right there's a tab for blog, and that's where a lot of these stories are of the different ways that schools have implemented it, the students have.
And there are students who have written letters afterwards talking about how this changed their lives, and they actually have like a disc. I don't know if it's on their website.
Well, some of them might be on the website, but I'm glad you said that, because I was just looking through this, and so this one girl wrote, or a student, just as a student, when I heard of Rachel's challenge, I was really depressed. I was really sad all the time. I had my mind on suicide all year, but when I saw Rachel's challenge, I changed my mind. I realized Rachael didn't have the choice of dying, it just happened. I wanted to take my life when Rachael didn't even get a second chance at hers. She would have grown up to be a great person, and I realized I could help her live on by spreading the word, and I will.
And they've received tons of those letters,
Yeah,
and they have them
so
all
many.
available for people to see. But just some of the students sharing how much of an impact it had on their lives, and how they were in a difficult spot, and how much that helped them, and how many people, had contacted. It started because of so many people that had contacted him about how his daughter had an impact on their lives, and how his daughter changed their lives. And you'll see that there were things that happened in the history of her life that led him to that moment where he was compelled to do what he's doing. And it was like the message was coming from his daughter, and he felt compelled to share that message and help kids all around the country. And actually, I think it's even in other countries that he's...
Oh yeah, they had the thing from Mexico or Panama? Mexico. Oh, from Mexico. The kids wanted to build from, I think, Monterrey, Mexico to where he is in Colorado. They wanted to make a paper chain that would be, enough to reach all the way to him in Colorado. And I don't want to give too many of the secrets away of the presentation, but there is one boy who Rachael reached out to, and it even says, like, it's not like Rachael became his best friend. She didn't become his best friend. She didn't hang out with him all the time. She would smile at him when she saw him. And that kid told her father and mother after she died that he was going to kill himself. And she stopped him from, didn't have to talk to him directly about not killing himself. But he said he had the plan, he was going to kill himself, and just that little bit that she did. And again, it wasn't like going over the top and having to be real showy with being friends with someone. It was just simply doing a small act of smiling or patting him on the back or saying hello.
And I think in sticking up for him in
she did.
situations.
It's one of the funny stories, I guess, at Hotel.
Yeah,
but
at Hotel.
So I hope that you would see the value in it, and I know it's a big number, but given everything that you get over 2 days, 5 presentations, and the number of people that it will reach, it's more than worth it.
We talk about educating the whole child, and we talk about anti-bullying, and kids are getting anti-bullying, all of these anti-bullying presentations constantly, and this takes a completely different angle. This is not your typical anti-bullying, don't be bullying kids kind of presentation. It's they don't. It's all it's a result of the message instead of the direct message. Do you know what I mean? It's indirect. It's an indirect effect, right? So that helps that. It's not the primary focus. So anyway,
I don't want to be.
Everybody will see it. We don't want to.
I have a couple of questions. Do you have questions? No. So I'm looking at your package that you're asking for is the Awaken package. One Awaken package and one Sustain package, and then your keynote speaker. But then you note here, no community event is included in the package. So did we get a discount on the Sustain package because we're not doing a community event? Because I see in your packages here that you should have you should have a video community event and a same-day live community event as part of the Sustain package. But then your Sustain package that you're proposing here says no community event. First of all, what's a community event? And secondly, why aren't we getting one? Or
So we are getting a community event, and that's why I was kind of confused by the wording. So that's something that we are looking into, because there is a huge, the second day. So the second day there is a big community event, and that's where Daryl Scott is coming in, and he is going to speak to the entire community, and everyone is welcome to attend that event.
So then this Sustain package, no community event included in the package is actually an error?
No, I think they separated Daryl as its own thing because he has a separate pricing. So yeah, so he's out there. But
So it's in a
that's
separate
what we
category,
got
that's
for
why,
this.
the way it's
So
broken
that's
down.
Also, your data-driven evidence here for your reductions. Did everybody look at that?
I don't know that everybody
This
here
is
has a
old
paper,
data.
but I have.
In my opinion. But it's very good old data. 47% reduction in disciplinary referrals. So my dissertation is on workplace incivility. This is really important, what you guys are proposing to do. Will stay with our kids in their future and make them better workers. I am behind that. I think this is a fantastic idea. The cost is a little high, but the data, you can't beat the data. And it's 2014 was when they did this assessment. So I'm wondering if you can find out when they plan to do another assessment, because they really should do this every 2 years.
Yeah.
So maybe they did one and it's just not available to us, but that would be good to have as well. But the data is fantastic. 84% reduction in disciplinary referrals in Texas. 47% reduction in disciplinary referrals in Washington. 53% reduction in disciplinary referrals in Georgia. Are you kidding me? This is fantastic, you guys.
Are we gonna be collecting our own? I would just leave it.
Well, this is a study.
I think we
that
could, we could.
You could, yeah, you'd have
I know,
to,
but like anyway, are we gonna,
No,
You'd
I
have
would
to
be
give
interested
it-
to know that too, if it really works.
if it,
And see South, Central, North, the high school, and see if these numbers are true. Because I read some reviews online after going through the contract. And I have heard mixed reviews, good, bad,
Yeah.
waste of time, waste of money.
But this is Mancova, so this is an actual data analysis that they did, which means that they ran the numbers before and then they ran the numbers after and then compared them. So that analysis was done, that, you can't dispute those kinds of, that kind of data in the school. So they're obviously isolated, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, we could do that too, we could run our own.
yeah, you could.
And
You'd have to do it
And there's-
after a certain amount
And
of
just so you know
time,
too, it's a tiered system. That's why the presentations are different for different age groups, because the high school presentation is not something that is appropriate for 5th and 6th graders.
Right,
The maturity level, and so I think there's also I think there may also be some differences in what different age groups takeaways, because some of the more impactful things that are older students are going to be able to experience are a little too much to bring into a younger
Yeah.
middle
And
school
then,
student.
I mean-
The Sustain package that includes the community event with Daryl Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a community event. So is the material that he's presenting in the community appropriate for all people who are coming?
I think, no, the community event is basically the high school presentation. And when they say high school, they give the same presentation to 7th through 12th grade.
Okay.
But in elementary school, they use different words and they don't, and overall, he doesn't dwell on the event, the incident that,
Right.
you know, triggered the whole thing. But they still touch on it differently
Right.
with elementary kids versus 7th through 12th graders. So really, we wouldn't have, it's not really something for the adults, you know, the parents to bring their K through 4 kids to that night. This is for
Right.
the parents, I want to pack as many, you know, adults into wherever we're gonna, the high school, wherever we're gonna do it. And the one thing I would say about the mixed reviews, I mean, in here it has a 98+% approval rating. I guess the people they presented to. I'd be interested to know if those people that gave the review, which program did they get? Did they just get the presentation and then didn't do anything with it? Because then, yeah, I mean, you know, then I would say that they probably didn't get much from it beyond the presentation. But, you know, for us, we have the 2 days, and most of our students in the school, or greater than half, I guess I should say, of our students that are going to be seeing it. You have no idea what they did or
So you don't know
what they
yet
did
if
with
you're
it.
doing 5th and 6th. So I see you have 3, elementary,
Mhm.
which focuses basically on kindness and inclusivity, if we're gonna like cut to the quick. Then you got the 5th and 6th grade, which is your story presentation, and then there's the challenge presentation. And we know we're definitely doing the challenge presentation as part of the package. But you're not sure yet about elementary or versus 5th and 6th?
I think
Based on numbers, what we're trying to do is do 5 through
yeah,
12.
I think Dr. Price
5 through
has.
12.
So
Sorry.
as we started laying out this schedule, Dr. Bowman and I were looking at this. One of the days, again, doesn't matter which day, we'll just pick days, March 12th, let's say, definitely grades 6, 7, and 8, and we're looking at ways to possibly get the 5th graders there. And the next day, the 2 trainings would be 9 to 12, they just be broken up into 2 different groups, probably 9, 11, and
Okay.
10, 12. So 6 to 12 for sure. 5th, we're looking at that plan. It would be a very packed, every seat full auditorium if we could bus those students up here and do that. But 6 to 12 for sure. So there would be 2 presentations each day, age appropriate, and then that second day, the evening, would be the parent presentation.
But definitely we're not doing the elementary.
Not younger than
Okay.
5th, no.
Not younger than grade
Okay.
5.
And-
But it's good to know that they do it.
Well, and we felt like,
In the future.
yeah, like the middle school, I think, and the elementary school, each elementary school has its own Schwebs, whatever, you know, this school-wide positive thing, and again, money. You know, I would, yeah, like
I get it.
we wanted every student in the school district to see it, but then when you start thinking about, well, you have to make some choices, and you know, this is
And there's not, you know, the difference between the things that we're already doing at the
Yeah, at the
younger level
elementary.
compared to what they're doing, because they can't really get into the things that they can get into at the older levels. We didn't think it's as worth it as them seeing it later when they're older. But the other thing I'd like to, and maybe Dr. Price remembers, but we did you know, they have those studies that are done on a regular basis with our students, and they complete these, I think it is the PAYS survey, but there was, one of the questions on there was how many of you have contemplated committing suicide? And it was staggering to me. I was shocked to see the numbers, because I think, and I'd have to look at it again, but I think it was 42%. It was high. It's sticking. 42% is sticking in my head. I'd have to double check the numbers, but I remember the number being so high that it almost took my breath away. That many kids would say that they had considered, you know, being in that position, and how are we helping those kids? And I think this is a good way to try to help. Help kids who are struggling. So
this is only for 5th grade and on then? Yeah.
correct.
And with the kids, they bring in, you have 100 kids come in to get the training. And I assume Dr. Bolton, he's on vacation, but we were thinking of having a few maybe from the middle school, the older middle school ones to come so that, they'll bridge the gap. And focus on the kids who are maybe like 10th and 11th grade so that you have leaders for the subsequent years. And another interesting thing that the Rachael's Challenge group will tell you is we want 100 kids, but we don't want 100, it's 100 kids of all different types, of all different places in their behavioral, whatever, spectrum, whatever you want to call it. But basically because they feel that there's value in taking a kid who you might not think, there's a student that ought to be invited to be a leader in something like this, but it turns out to be something that's very, consequential for their life. It has a big impact on it for them to be chosen as a leader. And you heard from the letters that kids wrote about it when they take it upon themselves. It changes you. It changes your perspective when you're focusing on just doing something positive instead of your problems.
Have we looked at other programs?
There's nothing, and I knew that this question, like people would ask, well, isn't this just another anti-bullying? And it's really not. And I struggle with the way to explain it. I can't explain it, but I was thinking about it, I'm like, what analogy? And all I could think of that came to mind is like, I don't know what the Coke formula is that makes Coke taste so good, but I know it's better than Pepsi. But I can't put my finger on it. The best way I can describe it is that this flips it. This is not outside in, this is inside out. And it's not top down from, school administration down to the kids. It's the kids driving, what did Peter, the regional director, he said it's their want to. It gives them a want to, a reason to do something because they're driven to do it. And we have all those other things. Everything else we have in SEL, they're great things, but they're all outside in, top down things. It's not student.
And there's so many examples out there. We talked about Rachel's Closet, but the different school, it's the kids. They come up with, they take this to a whole nother level on their own. It's initiated by the students. And so the different examples of what different kids have done in different districts. And it's interesting to see what the kids, the kids come up with, and the training, so that you're going to have the professional development for the teachers. Well, that doesn't go away, right? So if we have to, once the kids go through and graduate, and then our younger kids come up, and then if we come back and have a presentation again, you don't need the professional development piece, the training piece. Now you've already had that in place. Now they know how to do the trainings, and now they can help to do those trainings on their own rather than it being initiated by them. So a lot of this then sets the stage for later and carrying that through.
And there's
a
lot of
presentations that we did before then.
I'm sorry?
What did we do else instead of this? What did we do before?
I don't think we
haven't done anything of this kind, but what we're doing right now for social emotional learning, like they'll have, I can't think of what they call it in the middle school. Dr. Price, what do they call that in the middle school?
Mentoring that they're doing?
I'm not mentoring. It's the little groups that they have, and they call them something, I can't think of the term, where they get together and they talk about things. But a lot of the focus is focusing on bullying behavior and how to talk to a bully or relate to a bully or understand a bully. And while at some point you can only do so much to change another person's behavior. This gives you the power to, the other person's behavior doesn't really mean as much because you have a way of just impacting the world the way that you want it without relying on that other person to change the behavior. And by putting it in their hands, there's also an element of self-worth to that. When you give someone, tell them, look, you can do this. You can have a positive impact on your world. It's very empowering, and it will improve their sense of self-worth. It's, when people have work to do, they feel valuable, they feel a sense of self-worth, and this is putting it in their hands instead of making them feel helpless, like they're just at the mercy of whatever's happening in the world around them. They are not at the mercy of anyone.
And when you have, I mean, this had a traumatic impact, I think, on all of the adults that were in that room. And so if it can have that much of an impact on adults, you know, I think of how much of an impact that could have had on, you know, us when we were high school students. I mean, you've got a room full of administrators and school board members, and I'm telling you, there was not a dry eye in that entire room. We were all, you know, we were all impacted by that present. It was powerful. It was powerful, and it makes. I think it was inspiring for adults, and
Well,
you know,
I think,
and we didn't get the trainings and the
well, no, we
professional
didn't get the training, but I
development and
think
the, you know.
I didn't know until the other day that you said that you weren't even going to go, and I had to tell you when I saw it on the description of all the sessions, I was like,
It didn't. Yeah, it didn't appeal.
okay.
It didn't look as
It's gonna be
appealing.
another-
That session didn't look as appealing on paper. It's one of those things you have to see it. So.
And then another thing to point out, like Megan just brought up, the impact that it had on adults. They tell you to make sure you have your presentation earlier in the week so that you have some school days between the time people see the presentation and the time they don't have it on a Friday and have people go home for a weekend. And they said not just for the children, but adults in the building will go to the guidance department, will go to people to talk about, because it brings things up even in the adults' lives that they want to talk about. And so
Is it a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Wednesday, Thursday?
I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday,
Oh.
or is it a Monday?
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday. So, I mean, I think it's really hard, it's really hard, I think, when we look at these, like, words that just say it's kindness and compassion. And when we look at, well, let's pay a lot of money to teach our kids how to be kind, and we can easily go, well, that's a lot of money to, do things that we should already be doing. But I think what your program touches on is diversity, but that's great. But inclusivity, sounds like, is a big theme. But the kindness and compassion is not something you normally would get in a program, so that's an added element, really. And then it also sounds to me like they're teaching self-actualization,
Yeah.
which is a huge deal, because you can't really, you can teach your kids to be nice to each other, but then they got to be able to practice it, and or otherwise teach your kids how to include, or how to, hey, Mrs. Walter, how you doing? Something simple like that. But if they don't have opportunity to implement it, and they aren't expected to actually do that, then you're spending money on something that doesn't make sense. This program sounds to me like they thought of that component and are even telling you when to schedule it so that the kids can practice it. I think it sounds like a solid program. You're very curious about this Friends of Rachael club, what that entails,
That's it be an ongoing, just like any other club in the high school, and
So
they would decide
What they
whatever
do.
they would do.
Yeah, it's student. It's student. That's the piece that we were talking about, where it's
Completely
initiated by the
student.
students, and they take it in their own
So
direction.
they can really do anything with a club.
hmm And look at the website on the blog and just see the different examples of what they've
I just
done.
think that's
Sorry,
so
we're taking a lot of time, Sean.
Fine.
I mean, it's a lot of money though for the program. It is. We can't kid ourselves. It's a lot of money, but it's,
Well,
I
but you
think
also
when
think
you-
about what the cost is for one presentation,
one
and you're
assembly
talking
can be
about 2 full days and a
$2,000.
night.
True.
You're talking about
Yeah.
2 full days and a night.
And
It's
they can
including the
have-
training, the professional development, 5 presentations. I mean,
And
that's
the number
that's
of buildings
substantial
that
if you
you
try to
have
divide that
to
up
do
by
it.
Other
cost.
presentations that you've had in the past, did they give you this amount of data?
No, I don't.
Well,
I don't.
no.
I don't remember seeing data like
Yeah.
that in their.
I mean, I just
presentation.
know the cost of assemblies for a single elementary school to do something simple, even like having one of the
juggler.
days having the juggler, or having an author come in for a book event. That's not cheap.
No.
And you're multiplying that by, so
Right.
we're getting our 3 middle schools, the high school, and the community all, boom, done.
I mean, it
And
is
for that price, I
expensive,
think
but
it's,
it's
it's a good value, though.
Value.
the price is high, but the value is it's a solid value, is what I would say.
Well,
So.
I'm on board.
Okay.
Okay. So is everyone okay with moving this forward?
I am very
talking about other programs that we would spend as much or something like that, I would like to see, just because then I can use.
I don't know what other programs
Yeah, we
compare
don't
to
have
this, so I'm
anything.
not sure what you
Well,
are
you're
looking
telling me
for.
that, like when.
Or you're just saying like another assembly, like.
Yeah.
other
Like an
you're
assembly?
telling me that you're spending this much money on other programs in the school already to kind of compare apples to apples, or.
Dr. Price, would you be able to get, some
Yeah.
examents of different presentations that we're having?
X number of assemblies, what those prices were type.
Yeah.
Or
If
it's,
you're right, we won't find a similar,
but at least that would give.
A speaker that talked about bullying or something, what was the cost and how long was the presentation? We could pull
Right,
stuff
and then
like
that could help because you could multiply that by 5 or whatever to even see how many presentations you're getting and for that many students. Because obviously you can't. Usually those things are in one building, and
Yeah.
you're not doing getting all of these students at once either.
And
So.
aren't they included, and they're not including parents?
Well, no,
Right.
of course not.
So that would be a
So
different.
then there's that, so.
Yeah. And that's another thing, it's one of the, well, this is sort of pulling in like the PCEF, or Community Education Foundation. One of the ideas, am I allowed to share ideas, Joe?
Absolutely.
So one of the ideas is having a speaker series, and well, our hope is that like the school district could sponsor one, and then maybe an outside partner could, and then maybe Education Foundation funds. We would have enough to sponsor one. So in my mind, this is the school district's sponsoring of a community event where you would have everybody, open to every single person to come in the community to see it. So, and those would be a good amount of money to have someone come in and give a community event. So it's I think it's comprehensive, so comprehensive, bringing the program to so many people that I don't know to just say, well, it's not like the cost of another assembly, well, because it's not another assembly.
And I would encourage tell everyone you know
Tell everyone you
that
know.
it's important to be there, and if they're, and I would say,
It's a meeting that.
I dare you to come to me
priority.
afterwards and tell me
Yeah.
that it was not worth your time and that you wish you didn't
'Cause I'm
go,
gonna be
because I
watching
think,
to see if you have tissues.
Maybe we should take donations of tissues.
Well, donations of I was going to say, I wasn't kidding. Like, I was thinking if the funding doesn't come from the school district, I looked into asking the county to fund it when we were going to have all the county. Well, I already. So yeah, we can. So, but I thought, you know what? I'll just go to people and ask them to make a donation to help diffuse the cost of it. But I don't know. all options. We can ask for a free will donation.
My
No,
only
we do
concern
that.
is with the contract where it says it doesn't provide a community
Mm-hmm.
presentation. I think it should probably say that in the contract.
we can see
Yeah,
if
we'll
we
have
can,
them
if we can
change it.
fix that
A little
language a
more.
little bit so it's
I agree.
it's
Well,
more
it's
clear.
That's what
actually-
we're getting.
Yeah,
It's actually a part of the Daryl Scott keynote, that's the
That's the-
public
yeah, that's the-
presentation.
Right.
That's why it says that the sustained package does not include one, because it's in the Daryl Scott. So it's in this item here, the
Yeah.
third
Yeah,
item.
they removed it from,
Right.
the only
Yeah.
thing
Can it be
removed was the
clarified?
scene package.
Can that just be clarified because are we allowed to just change it, just say that's because, what you just said?
Yeah,
can
like
you
to
write
put
that?
an asterisk as to why it's not
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, in their defense, we really did cobble together, we came at them, we're like, well, we want all of our kids to see it, and this is how we want to do it. Like, I don't think they've ever had anybody approach them the way that
we did
approach them.
Well, we did it.
Because we were like, let's see, we've got 7,300 students.
Well, what we're trying to do is get our, we're trying to
the
get our money's
most
worth. We're
people.
trying to get,
Well,
we're
if
trying
we're
to, in
getting
that
our
presentation,
money's
be able to
worth-
get as many people as we can in to see that presentation and as much as we could for the best deal. And so that's why we
Yeah.
were finagling it and trying to figure out the best way to do that would have the best
Well,
impact.
if we're gonna get our money's worth, I want results like this. So if we're gonna approve this, I want survey the kids before, survey the kids after, survey the kids in 6 months. I wanna see our own data to see if it was worth our money.
When you say survey, you were talking about like discipline referrals. Is that something that we have tracked right now? Like,
No,
could
right
we?
here they
Yeah.
say, how many do you do participate in school activities? Went from 2,900 and change to 7,100 and change. So that's what we can survey our kids about, and we can ask them same things. Have you ever thought about committing suicide?
Well, we have,
a week later, ask them if it made an impact on them.
well, the PAYS survey does some of that too, and so we could compare that year to year and see what that difference
Yeah,
is.
you have to give time between, it can't be
Right,
like
so how
a,
long in between?
It's not like we do it one
before
week and then
RC
2 weeks
after
later.
RC, was this data taken? How long?
I mean, I don't know, but I would assume like with anything, like you can't, especially for the discipline referrals. I mean, you can't look at discipline referrals this week and then next week and expect to see
Well,
an
that's what I said, I
appreciable
mean, like
change.
this
I feel
week,
better
2
knowing
weeks,
we have
5
an
months,
idea.
6 months?
Yes. No, I'm absolutely for surveying it, but
I mean,
like
you
at,
need to make
at-
sure you're.
I mean,
what, at a time when it makes sense
all
to
they did
do
was
that.
run a,
Right.
all they did was run a little I have an SPS test we could do. Like,
Yeah.
So like, couldn't we just run this
Yeah,
analysis?
we collect
A multivariate?
all of that discipline data already in Power School.
Right,
And then the pay
exactly.
surveys every other year, so
So,
we would have that type of,
yeah.
data as well. But the hard
Run it
part's
before,
gonna be,
run it after.
the hard part's gonna be isolating the variable of the assembly and the
Yeah.
effect of that alone on, cause you know, there's other things that the schools do.
Mhm.
But still, if you're looking to see improvement,
Well,
this
can you-
would be something that contributes to that improvement.
Mhm.
So you can take all that data that we currently
You
have,
could
you
do
can
it
run
like
it anytime
so you can go back and look at data that you had.
in previous years, yes.
Yeah, so you could do it like last year and this year, then, and see if it drops,
It's all
you never know.
archived, so we can, at any
You
But
can look at the
nonetheless, I
week
still
of
think it's a good deal,
March
even if we're,
11th of that week, March 11th of the following year. See if it changed, you know, from the time they had it to a year later, right?
Mhm.
I think some of those questions, though, I'm kind of like for example, that have you ever considered suicide?
Well, that's our question.
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is, would that next year, that wouldn't necessarily change, because if you have ever considered it, then you still would say that you have ever I mean, you'd have to say, well, have you considered it in the last 12
that's
months?
different.
Do you know what I mean? So
We were
it's,
talking about disciplinary referrals, and you were talking about this.
Right, and participate
law.
in school, intervene in bullying, would not bully, have you reached out to others?
This is an easy
Why?
enough thing to do. You do it before, you make a survey, you have the kids take it before they take the assembly, and then a week or two later or something like that, you have them take another
Yeah.
survey, and then you compare the analysis. Am I right? Is that?
Yeah, although
I mean,
don't
a week
think we
later
need to
would
use
be, I
survey.
think-
we would just use our most recent data.
Yeah.
And then
And I don't
No,
know,
I
whenever
mean,
you want to
if this
reissue.
is on, I mean, we were moved on to the participate, do you participate in school activities? Do you know, did you ever intervene in a bullying situation? You know, that Mrs. Dolan is referring to, which is different than what we were referring to, which
Right.
is the
But I
disciplinary
think you have the
reference.
perception data and then you have the hard discipline data and
Yeah.
we
Right,
could look
but
and see
I mean,
how
I would like
recent
to
it's
see
been.
all of the data. If they
I
report it
think-
and they say it's better, ours should be better. If it's this great, 117%, 282%.
I think it's clear to the
47%
administration
reduction in
what you're looking for, and so maybe the administration can talk about it and come up with a plan for that kind of information and get back to us of what you think would be the best way to, you know, kind of figure out the before and after, what you think is the best way to do that. Okay. Okay.
Thank you for this. Anyway, it's exciting. I find it very exciting.
Next up is review request to waive school real estate tax penalties. Mr. Dahlberg?
Okay, so this year we got 3 of these requests. Last year we did not get any. I believe maybe the year before we had one or two maybe. But so what happens is you know, the board passes the annual budget in June, and then in the middle of June, and then that next week we prepare the tax bills and mail the tax bills out. So they're with the taxpayers prior to July 1st, which is when the taxes can officially begin to be paid. Then there's a time frame where the taxpayers can pay their taxes at a 2% discount. After that, there's a time frame where the taxpayers can pay the taxes at the face value of the bill. And then after that period is over, there's a period where the taxpayers can pay the tax bill in penalty period, which is 10% penalty of the face value of the bill. And if they continue to not pay the taxes after December 31st, they go delinquent and go to tax claims at the county, and the county begins the process of collecting the taxes, or doing, or eventually down the road, taking the property if the taxes don't. So, when we get to the point where we're at the end of the face the face period, our tax collectors send out what's called a final notice to all the taxpayers who haven't paid their taxes yet. It's a notice that says, by the way, your taxes aren't paid, and you have until December 31st to pay the taxes. If you don't pay the taxes, then you become delinquent and all that. So it's a final notice, basically saying, giving the taxpayers a reminder, and we pay our tax collectors to do that as we pay them to collect the bills. So what has happened is those final notices have triggered these three people to realize they didn't pay their taxes, and they all have a reason, and they all have a different reason why they didn't pay their taxes. And these three people, based on their reasons, are requesting that the board waive that 10% penalty and basically give that money back to them. In the history of Pennridge, as far as I know, and as far as Dr. Yarnell has told me, because he goes back much farther than me, these were never approved.
He goes back farther than everybody.
These were never approved by the board, and the reason being is that the solicitor's advice is always to make sure that all taxpayers are treated the same. No one gets any differential treatment. Everyone gets the bills. Everyone has the same amount of time to pay discount, to pay face, to pay penalty, and delinquent. As long as everyone's treated the same, the district is fine in legal standing. When the district starts to say, I like you better because your story is better and I'll give you the discount, but your story is not good, you're not going to get the discount, or we're not going to give you the money back, then we have a big problem. And that is basically, if we approve these, is what we would be doing. We would be saying to all the rest of the people that paid the 10% penalty, you pay it, but you three people, you've got a good story, whatever that story is. And most people have a great story. Something happened, their spouse died, their spouse pays the bills, they didn't know about it, they didn't get it paid in time, the final notice came, they didn't even know they had a tax bill till the final notice came. Or we were in closing at July 1st or June 30th, and the bill didn't get to us. Well, that's the responsibility of the folks at closing to make sure that the tax bills are taken care of and given to the paid and that. So there are people to do that. So those are the reasons we normally get those type of reasons, and they're usually good reasons. But again, as a board, as a taxing authority, you need to make sure that you treat all the taxpayers under the same circumstances. So.
Yeah, and I think the one request is identical to situation identical to one that we had.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So we can.
I mean, that would be awful if we said yes, and then. Stinks. I can say that I had to pay penalty because we didn't get our bill, not here, to somewhere else, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
It does stink.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. So this will not move forward.
Okay. So we will.
All right. Are you good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Just don't even move them forward.
Well, or do you want to deny them formally?
I
at the
think
board?
you have.
We have to.
Don't we have
Yep.
to? Don't we have to
Yep.
vote?
I think
I'm pretty
we
sure.
did.
Yep.
I think
All
that's
right.
what we did before, which
Sorry.
we took them
My bad.
and voted down.
Okay.
Okay.
I think it's tough though when you hear some people's circumstances.